We're going to talk about a question of sport. They're decking it after 50 years. They sacked Sue Barker and now they put in Paddy McGuinness and no one's watching. What a shame. What a gimme for ITV, for Sky. They can nick the format and get someone in who is a bit more friendly. And it just makes me think, you know, the BBC sort of, you know, meddle with things too much and then no one ends up watching it. Now, Football Focus is an example. It was about this time of day, wasn't it, on a Saturday afternoon? And in the olden days, it was appointment to view, wasn't it, as I said to Petrie? It was Bob Wilson, you know, isn't it? Marvellous, absolutely super. Let's look at the game. It's Burnley against Tottenham, isn't it? And it was Jimmy. And now I don't watch it, I must say, because when I turn over, it's all sort of sniggering and chit-chat and it's sort of like Soccer AM, which, of course, has also gone. And I just wonder whether actually we should bring football back to where it was. And that was sort of blokes in suits, isn't it, you know? Isn't it? Let's go to Turf Moor, isn't it? Ralphie Coates in the comb-overs, Bobby Charlton, isn't it? I think it's now time for me to introduce my guest here on talkTV, Benedict Spence. Very good afternoon. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon. Perhaps we should do that. We should have our own football show where we actually talk about football as it was meant to be discussed.
Exactly. Now, I'm not being a misogynist here. I'm not being sexist. There's plenty of room for women's football. But wouldn't it be nice to have blokes in blazers, you know? Because actually, most people...
Nice about the name Manchester United, when it sort of rolls off the tongue like that, which normally I detest the club, but actually put in those terms, or Tottenham Hotspur, yes, actually it sounds rather civilised. I quite like it.
Benedict, you have just submitted a demo tape to read the football results.
On TalkSport, maybe.
Yeah, I think you should do it here. I think you should do it now and just predict them.
Who was the man who used to read them?
James Alexander Gould.
That's right.
Do you know, I used to read them on independent radio.
4 for 5.
4 for, yeah, I know. That was slightly annoying because it was actually 4 for Athletic.
Yes.
Which takes a joke out of place. Cardenbooth 0. Which I thought was the name of the football club.
Yeah.
But let's talk about question of sport first of all, because I think this smells of the BBC looking inward. They've got all these brands, all these famous brands which are actually dormant. Things like Animal Magic with Jonny Morris, where the giraffes were all from Bristol, weren't they? Oh, all right, that's how I do. And they're not looking after the BBC, and I think it actually starts with the custodians, not in the ivory towers, but on the shop floor. It's changed, hasn't it?
It has. There's something about... The BBC used to do panel shows very well, be it comedic, be it serious. And, you know, you can take Have I Got News For You on the one hand, and you can take Question Time on the other. Both used to be, as with Football Focus, appointment viewing. Now, I don't know anybody who watches them. I certainly don't watch them. No. You don't get what you used to. You know, both of them used to be, on the one hand, very insightful, very entertaining, or hysterically funny. And now they just aren't. And I think the same is the case with A Question of Sport. Question of Sport has lasted a very long time, you know, almost, what, 50 years or something like that? And it managed to tread the line between being sort of upbeat, humorous, but also a very serious sports show where you could sort of test your knowledge and, you know, play along, so to speak. And it was enjoyable, and it was the sort of thing where you wouldn't switch over if it was on. But now it very much is, because you know you're not getting the same sort of test or information that actually people want. And it's not just a question of sport. It's happened. There's been a sort of degradation of the quality of lots of different, perhaps wrong to say flagship shows, but shows that everybody knew of and everybody recognised, and slowly the quality has been going down. Top Gear was taken off off the air. I mean, perhaps that was an inevitability.
Yeah, well, they sacked the Beatles, didn't they, for punching that bloke in the gob over a steak?
Yeah, perhaps that was an inevitability, but I think... There has been an inability to move with the times in the sense that you do need to preserve some aspects as well as rejuvenating others. And I think sometimes they sort of... I mean, take Have I Got News For You? It's the same two blokes who have been doing it for a very long time. They were very funny once, they're not now.
I was about to talk about that.
And I'll be honest with you, it stopped being funny, more or less, after Boris Johnson hosted it that one time, and they had to turn it into a double bill episode because it just went off script. It turned into an hour-long episode, so they had one on one week, one on the next week. They just carried on. After that, it sort of went very much downhill, and guests became a lot more sort of right-on, a lot more sort of preachy. And I do think the two stalwarts are part of that. They didn't rejuvenate it. What they did was try to balance it out by having... It's wrong to say diversity or tick box exercise, but that is what they had to try and balance them out.
You've just touched on what I think the actual nugget of the problem is. There's a whiff of a lack of integrity the idea that there's not a meritocracy in producing those shows. So there's a certain kind of political glass ceiling which you have to be a bit right on, a bit Ben Elton-ish, and whoever his grandchildren are in comedy. And when you start engineering the output like that, then you take away the integrity. I mean, Lawrence Fox isn't going to be hosting that anytime soon, is he?
He's not, but he's not very funny. I've got to be honest. Lawrence Fox is a very bad example of what is out there, what else is out there. I don't know why it is. Presumably because he's actually, if we're being honest, it's because he comes from a famous family and he's well connected and he's already done stuff in the media industry. Otherwise, nobody would give him the time of day. I don't think you can say he's really traded off his talent, so to speak. He's traded off his notoriety.
Was he not a good actor?
He was a good actor, but he was nothing to write home about. He was never going to be getting a major Hollywood role.
Let's take Lawrence out of that and repose the question with Lee Hurst. You wouldn't have Lee Hurst on there, would you?
No, that's a better example, I think. I think it's very noticeable that the major sort of conservative comedian that goes on these shows is Jeff Norcott. And that's only because he has to push himself as, I am a conservative working-class comedian. That's literally his whole shtick. So they go, oh, yes, balance, that'll do, get him on. He won't say anything too offensive because he knows where to draw the line. Simon Evans, for a long time, was very funny, but I don't see him on TV so much these days, and he was never really a sort of a proper conservative. He's just, had received pronunciation. But you're right, there is a sort of a... You have to meet certain criteria to get on these shows, and it's no longer about spontaneity, about people saying something that's going to make is going to make the show descend into laughter. It has to be very sort of formulated. Everybody knows what's going to be said, so that even the controversial stuff is not too controversial, and it will get the audience clapping, not laughing, clapping. That's the key thing. And when it comes to question time, it's the same. People, If you had a penny for every time a panellist on Question Side said, what we need is, and then didn't give you a very good answer, we'd have solved the deficit by now. But ultimately, what they do is they come out with the soundbites and the audience will laugh, and then there's the wicked Tory and everybody boos. And that's the format now. Nothing is learned. A question of sport. Sadly, it had a very good setup. I think for a long time, Sue Barker and people like Ian Botham, actually it worked really well. I think the chemistry isn't there so much. I think it's tried to go off, as sort of alluded to, in a sort of a more Soccer AM direction, as a lot of these sort of things have. They're trying to become a bit more everyman, a bit more blokey. And do you know what, actually? People don't like to be patronised. They don't like something to be sort of packaged and go, well, that's you, isn't it? There you go. And
the blokes I have broadcast to on Talk Sport are quite deferential, actually, and they like order. They don't necessarily want to look down, they want to look up. There is an aspiration and an intelligence about our sister station's audience, Talk Sport, and I have found that in spades. I miss talking to the intelligent people that follow me around on Talk Sport.
That's what I think people want, intelligence. They don't care about where you're from, how you speak. What they want is an intelligent programme that they can learn from or enjoy. And I just don't think they're getting that.
Well, hopefully we're giving you that here, right here at talkTV. Jonny, I'm over the moon. Thank you for using the I'm over the moon there, Brian. That question of sport is going the next day. And what else should go is match of the day. It's so boring. And this comes from Sean the Sheep in County Durham. Hello, Sean the Sheep. And Steve from Stoke says, alliteration, Steve from Stoke, women commentators should commentate on women's football. I don't want to hear women giving their opinion because they simply haven't played at that level. And the reason they never played at that level from the lower leagues is because they haven't played at that level. Neither have the women, in fact. I hope that makes sense. Steve from Stoke. There's something else here as well, Benedict, which is that society has changed. And I'm just wondering whether the way that we consume media means that some of the formats that we've enjoyed for 50 years are like the parrot in the Fawlty Towers sketch. They are no longer. That, the question time idea, when it was Sir Robin Day, and there was a deference to politicians, even though we knew we're not sure about them, and they're all liars. That went back to the Terry and June era for sure, I remember it. But now, because of social media, because so many public figures let themselves down on social media, the cachet and the deference has disappeared.
But I do think, therefore, it is the role of the BBC to uphold standards, to drag everything back up. You know, I don't think... Yeah, there are other outlets, as you say, out there, other TV channels, social media that offer more lowbrow, more sort of punchy, more sort of soundbitey stuff. Actually, the BBC, as a public service broadcaster, is not there. This might sound very sort of pompous. I don't think it's there to give people what they want. It's what they need. It's what they need. It's what society needs. And you need a proper channel by which politicians can put themselves forward and be held to account, rather than just, you're all liars, which is very often what Question Time now is. And as a result, you don't get the big beasts going on Question Time so much these days. It is always three politicians who you aren't really interested in listening to because you don't know who they are, and then they try to get two bigger name celebrities or commentators. That's where the pull is. People don't tune in to listen to the Tory MP. They listen to Peter Hitchens. That's if they're going to tune in now, because I think a lot of the politicians sort of avoid it because it has just become too much of a bear pit. And we do like to hold people to account, but you can have too much of that. And as I say, I don't think if people aren't learning anything from it, because some backbencher or junior minister who has got a line to tread and can't think for themselves is going to just trot out the same line, or is just going to blame the other side, why would you bother tuning in for that? You already know what they're going to say. You only tune in if the celebrity or commentator is worth listening to.
Supplementary question there, ladies and gentlemen. What do you need from the BBC? As you say, Benedict, they are a mainstream channel with the capacity as Channel 1 or Channel 101 or the first channel that you see on your Freeview or on your Skybox, wherever it is. What do you need from the BBC? Where's the mission creep gone from? Quick texts and tweets. I'd love to hear from what do you need from the BBC. And I've started to be quite thankful for their mission creep, because this is why we exist here at talkTV, that we are filling in the vacuum.
Yeah.
Indeed, commentators like yourself are prolific here because they don't have room for you, and I think that's terrible.
Well, thank you for saying so. But, I mean, the fewer people like me that exist, you would think, the better, because you'd be getting everything you needed from the mainstream. But there are a lot of people actually like me. You know, listeners to this station know that there are plenty of people who are very opinionated, who you can only necessarily hear on certain channels. And, I do go on the BBC every now and again. I appear on other stations as well. But it is very much a sort of a box-ticking exercise. Makes it sound like these aren't people who are worth listening to, but it's very playing it safe. It's, okay, this political correspondent at this newspaper, not this newspaper. This person at this think tank, not that think tank. It's that sort of thing. This person represents the right, but the nice, safe kind of right that we're happy to listen to because it doesn't sound a little bit too much like, fascistic in our opinion.
Yeah.
That's what it is. This is a person who is going to give us a nice truth, not a hard truth. And I think that is very much part of the problem. But those people then go on, say the BBC, and they are lambasted because they are the face of the right, and it's acceptable to lambast the right on the BBC. So even those people are made to look like sort of demons or whatever. As I go back to saying, these poor Tory MPs, backbench Tory MPs, who are put up on Question Time and are just lambasted, and they're just sat there going, I just wanted to be an MP. I just wanted to have MP after my name. I didn't sign up for this, which is probably why so many of them are now resigning for the next general election, because they've had enough.
Because they're on their way out.